The title of this mission is I Fear Thy Nature. And we are actually going to start off with a montage in one of the science labs of the Hope. And I believe we have to hear from Mr. Montgomery.
Vincent Montgomery's log, stardate 74198.91. Record entry for transmission to Captain Bruce Maddox, Cybernetics Division, Days from Institute. Greetings, Captain. I would first like to thank you for trying to initiate a subroutine for what I would believe you'd call the Pinocchio algorithm. It did not succeed entirely, as everyone aboard the ship was able to find out and quickly discern that I was an android. The last mission I was on did not help perpetuate that deception, though, as I was required to expose myself to high levels of radiation and had to thus explain how I survived. Upon the information of me being an android has reached the crew, a certain individual named Dr. Fenley and his claim of a holographic chicken has constantly cornered me and questioned me and attempted examinations of me while I was on duty. Due to his rank and position, I would have to acquiesce to the orders. Nothing has become indignant, though, as long as there are not crossing any boundaries, as he would put it. I believe that the examinations shall be fine to do. The other part of my log here is to detail some idiosyncrasies I have found with the program that you've dubbed Pinocchio, and I will be transmitting the information of those with this log. My first day has been rather interesting. We have discovered 2 life forms. One of them has shape-shifting qualities, and the other one is a insectoid. I do worry for both of them, even though one, I believe, is going to be passing soon. I will make attempts to hopefully help it survive, but if not, to ease its passing on. End log.
Ensign Monterey, I have a few more questions for you, if you don't mind. Dr. Finley walks over. So, do you consume solid matter on a daily basis?
I do not have to, but I do decide to consume food, yes.
That's very interesting. If you were to consume solid material, would you also defecate solid material? And if so, what do you do with it?
He's just going to look at you for a second. Like, the act of defecation is not part of my programming, or is it built into me as well? In fact, the food is then broken down into a byproduct that is used to help lubricate the joints and hydraulics within my systems.
That's quite fascinating. Could you consume anything that you like? If let's try quarter, could you eat this?
I could, but it would not provide any sustenance or any of the compounds I would need for aforementioned process of lubrication.
That's quite fascinating. Are you susceptible to narcotics? Do you have a bloodstream that is consistent with other organics?
I do have a bloodstream. It's mostly meant for coolant fluid for other processes of my body, but I do not believe I can succumb to narcotics unless it is a polyalloy substance or a other design similar to the incident that happened on Enterprise D.
Aha. Challenge, my friend. Ensign Monterey, I will make it my personal goal to see what I can find, and we'll have an excellent trip together. If you'll excuse me, I have some ideas I'd like to explore.
Very well, sir. You can feel free to call me Monty.
Did I not say that, Ensign Monterey?
Close enough, sir.
And what is your function on this ship, might I ask? You do have a job here, right?
Yes, I'm operational manager of Beta Shift.
Yes. What exactly does that do?
I see to resources for each department. If you would require time on the sensor array, for example, or if you're having issues with a console, you let me know and I will let engineering know to send out maintenance workers.
Oh, you sound very useful. Ensign, I will get right to work. I promise. I have some great ideas and I will not disappoint.
I look forward to it.
And he scurries over into an alcove that he has designated for himself, and he's claimed off to the side Margaret the chicken, who he still claims is a hologram, but who's actually laid a few eggs in the lab since she's been here, is just kind of clucking, walking around.
I'm just going to go to a console and just disable any holographic projectors in the lab, if there are any.
Yeah, when you do that, Margaret's still there. It's very obvious she's not a hologram. Like I said, she's laid a few eggs.
Yeah, I just wanted to really confirm that. Like, okay. Just walk around her. I'll collect the eggs and put them in a safe spot. And I'll check on my little bug friend.
So I've told Montgomery that he has 6 intervals that he can use for checks, for research, for whatever he would like. And also anyone else could walk into the lab at this time. Where we're picking up is sort of like a day later from the last mission. So it hasn't been too long. If anyone might have walked in to check on the patient, we could also cover that in this scene. But Montgomery, without any further investigation, your patient, the bug, looks pretty much like he has been before. His condition is slowly worsening. His vital signs are fading. The biggest problem that you've had with him is that his anatomy is so foreign to anything that you have on record and any database that you have. He's very, very unusual, but it looks like he might slowly be dying.
So for the environment that I've replicated, it's the radiation and the atmosphere.
Yep,
and
you have
a couple of the plants.
Yeah, you told me you replicated the environment that was in the sphere ship. And also, before we get any further, I need to ask you about the modular science labs. How would you guys have set that up in a specific configuration to give you an advantage?
I'd say environmental focused labs.
Okay. To replicate more of like his environment, sure.
Atmospheric labs, yeah.
Atmospheric and definitely disease research for like vaccine and all that. That could be a lab.
We'll say the advantage will be anything that has to do with setting up his environment, his atmosphere. You guys will have an advantage on that if anything comes up that you need to check for.
So I got the radiation, the atmosphere, and a plant. The one thing I want to check, though, is I want to know if this bug needs a current. The plant shocked me. I want to know if it needs an electrical current.
Let's maybe do a medicine insight here, and I think what you will be trying to learn is more about its anatomy. So I'm going to make the difficulty a 3. And this will take 2 of your 6 intervals unless you want to spend momentum to reduce that in some way.
Could I argue with reason in medicine? I'm trying to deduce if it's needed?
Sure. You can sell me that way.
And don't have a focus. I really want this little bug to live, though. So no complications, though?
No, because you're just examining him. I don't think there's going to be an extra complication range for now.
Okay.
But that gives me ideas. Thank you.
Are you guys okay if I give him a threat for a 3rd dice?
Sure. Go for it.
And, what's the difficulty?
It's a 3.
3? Okay, so reason, medicine.
That's correct, reason, medicine.
Now you got your 3.
Actually, I have 4 because as an android, I gain 1 success automatically on any reason checks.
So before I start giving you answers, would you like to change that interval cost? Because it would have cost you 2 by default.
Oh, yeah. 2 more threat for you, isn't it?
It's 1 threat or 1 momentum to lower it to 1.
And we would have just gotten one from your thing with an android, so we could just use that momentum we gained.
Sure.
So what you can tell right away is it doesn't look like electrical current is naturally something that he needs. Electrical current does play something in how he was interfacing with that vessel that he was on, but it's not critical to his survival.
Okay. Yeah, I'll page Dr. Tuzon. See if he would like to join me in the lab.
I'll hit my comm badge. Yes, Ensign.
Doctor, I'm dealing with the health of the unidentified alien species known as the bug. I would appreciate an extra set of eyes, as it were. I'm trying to find a way to stabilize them.
I can certainly come down and see if I can help.
I'll say with Lars's planetary atmospheres focus, he'll go to one of the modular labs and try and help him that way. See if there's something we might be missing.
Okay, Lenars, if that's okay with you, I'll throw you in this scene with Montgomery.
Sure.
Lenars, as you walk in, what you see is Dr. Finley off in an alcove working. He doesn't really pay you any attention. You see Margaret off in a corner, making kind of a mess, dropping little chicken poos as she's walking, and then Montgomery focused at a terminal.
Oh, the poor carpet.
Ensign?
Specialist?
Apparently you're having problems with one of our new guests.
Yes, the insectoid. It seems to be dying. Trying to figure out how to stabilize it right now.
Oh, let me see what I can do here. And he'll walk over to one of these terminals and he'll try because we determined that the atmosphere on the spear ship was the same as a class-wide demon planet, correct?
Yeah.
I would like to cross-check maybe there's some kind of element in the bug's bloodstream or otherwise that isn't in a class-wide demon planet's atmosphere that we might be missing.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm going to spin 2 threat here, Lenoris. When you walked into this lab, you got a splitting headache, and it's like small migraine stage headache, but it happened right when you walked into the lab. And the result of that is going to be any control test that you make while you're in this lab is going to have an increased difficulty of 1.
Okay.
But as far as examining him, I would say maybe a medicine insight to start trying to figure out what could be going on with him. I would say the difficulty for that will be a 2.
Okay.
Did you mention that it's related to the atmosphere? I think you did.
Yeah, I'm basically cross-referencing this thing's maybe blood or otherwise, if we have any samples with the atmosphere of a class Y to see if there's something that we might be missing.
Well, I brought that up because the modular lab settings, that'll lower the difficulty to a 1.
Okay. Genetics or planetary atmospheres as a focus?
Yeah, one of those would apply here.
Okay.
And that'll also use 2 of the 5 remaining intervals that you guys have. It's mostly to keep track of time so other things while people are in different parts of the ship will happen.
Sure. All right. So, yep. Okay. So we gained a couple momentum there.
That's 2 momentum.
I'll spend 1 to so we only use 1 interval.
Cool. That's gonna get you guys down to 4.
Yep.
So as far as the environment is concerned, it looks very close, almost exactly pressure, radiation intensity. Because you remember this radiation that was on that vessel was intense. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You've managed to replicate that. You're baking him sufficiently to the point to where you have like 99.9% accuracy in the conditions in that vessel, which is why he's in that isolation chamber. No one can step in there. It would be lethal immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And since you have this 2 momentum, you can also obtain information if you'd like by giving me some of those.
Okay. So I'm guessing from the task there was nothing we were missing, or
No, like I said, the 9.99% accuracy that you guys have in the atmosphere is the highest fidelity that you can get, which is almost exactly the same as him being in that sphere.
Gotcha.
Would we be able to ask what we need to keep him to survive?
You could ask me what is wrong with him, and I can tell you that.
Sure. I'll spend that momentum and ask what's wrong.
Important detail.
Yeah.
It looks like his body is about 70% brain. So most of him is brain matter and then some organs. And it looks like a portion of his brain has become necrotic. So it's dead. And that dead portion of his brain, the rest of his system is shutting down because that portion is like his immune system is freaking out because that part of the brain is dead.
That's interesting.
Did you find something?
You know how they say that most humans are 70% water?
Yes.
This thing is 70% this, and he kind of, points to his head. And it appears that part of it is dead, and that's causing it to shut down.
Monty's going to go back to the console and he's going to start to see if he could program nanites to assist with any repair to the damaged section of the bug's brain. He's going to run a simulation to see if he can devise something.
And the doors to the lab open, and in steps Dr. Tuzon. Tuzon, as you walk in, Finley perks up. He says, Nurse Tuzon, I was actually just thinking about you. I have a question.
Dr. Friendly just die on us. Oh, did we lose Josh?
I was going to say, Josh, if you're saying things, we can't hear you.
Oh, no, I was saying, Tuzon, if you said something, I did not hear you. Perhaps we just had a hiccup.
Apparently, I turned to him. Doctor, what can I do for you?
Nurse Tuzon, I was wondering if you had any idea how I could get a small supply of trilithium. I'm working on an experiment.
What experiment are you doing that you need trilithium?
Well, apparently Instant Montezuma, and he points to Montgomery, he does have a bit of a biochemistry that relates to an organic creature. And I had this idea, which I would be happy we could collaborate on, that if I mix a bit of trilithium with antimatter, I could create the most amazing narcotic for him.
I'll run it by the captain and commander, and we'll get back to you.
Excellent, excellent. As I said before, Nurse, you're a very rising star in the medical community. If you'd ever consider going to fully training to become a doctor, let me know. I have plenty of contacts in Starfleet medicine that could help you out.
Good to know, Doctor. I turned to Montgomery and Lenara. What have we found out so far, guys?
Well, apparently this insectoid being is 70% brain. the part of the brain that controls most of its nervous system has become dead, and so it's starting to slowly shut down.
Probably from being taken out of its atmosphere, of the star, or us poking around in there. There's a variety of reasons that could be. Have we figured out any way of reversing it or calming it down?
Not at the moment, but
I'm attempted to reprogram nanites to see if they could be equipped with microscopic dermal regeneration equipment and attempt to do repair on him.
Not a bad way of going, Ensign.
And Montgomery, for a creature of his size, if you want to operate on him, you'd probably have to use nanites anyway, because he is nearly microscopic himself.
Yeah. So I was thinking of doing is using nanites because he's so tiny. Would I be able to like run a computer simulation to see the success rate of using nanites on him?
Yeah, what's the outcome that you're hoping for? What would you like to do?
To at least stabilize and possibly help encourage regrowth of the damaged tissue.
That will most likely be, probably in this case with him, it's going to be a medicine daring. Let me see. You want to run a simulation here. So you guys have some momentum, don't you? I think you have one left.
No, because I used that last one for the obtain information.
Okay.
Would you like assistance running the simulation?
I would like assistance, yes.
To help build you guys up some momentum, let's do it a check. Let's do a medicine reason. And that can be for both of you guys. The difficulty on this, just running the simulation, is going to be a difficulty of 2.
Okay.
Could I argue for like surgery as a focus because we're running simulations for surgery?
Yeah, absolutely.
And could I argue cybernetics because I'm programming the nanites to carry out this task?
Yes, you guys are hustling me. Yeah, that'll work.
Yes.
Would you like to lead or would you like me to lead?
For insight, for reason medicine, I have a 15.
I have a 14, so you're one higher. I have a 5 in medicine, though, so my crit range is higher.
I got a 4 in medicine. But I do get that automatic reason success.
True. Go ahead and lead. I'll follow.
Okay. So, technically 2. Ooh.
So I see 4. That's 2 momentum. You can program the nanites to alter that part of his brain. The problem is if you do that, you're not sure that you can regenerate that part of his brain because you don't know if you could actually replicate his DNA. The outcome that gives you the best result is to actually remove that part of his brain.
Okay.
So, like, send in the nanites to basically cut off that part of the brain?
Yeah, his body's rejecting it and it's dead tissue. So if you removed it, then his body would probably calm down and he should stabilize. And that gives you probably like an 80% chance of success.
I just turned to Montgomery and Linares. Who's up for a little brain surgery today?
Can provide assistance through watching the nanites, but for surgery, I am still a novice.
As am I, as you most likely know, Commander.
Well, with the this creature being so small, the nanites are going to have to do most of the work. I mean, sending in the nanites, they can basically cut off and remove that part of the brain of it. We aren't going to be able to actually penetrate into him without damaging the entire creature. But if we send in the nanites and surgically place them and remove that part of the brain, gives him a fighting chance.
Well, it's either he dies slowly or he has a chance to survive. If I was flesh and blood, I would take the chance to survive.
As would I.
As would I.
All right. To your stations. Let's see if we can do this.
So a little housekeeping. Would you guys have wanted to give me a momentum to cut down that last check into one interval? You still have 4 left. So if you spend 2, you still have 2 to do 1 check on the surgery. And when that time runs out, nothing terrible happens. We'll just switch scenes to Isha, who I think is the only person not in this scene currently.
Sure, we'll cut down on an interval of time.
So you have 3 remaining. If you can give me one of those momentum, and I have a piece of information I can give you if you want to spend the last momentum, which I think is pretty valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can proceed with what you know currently.
Well, I have quick study, so I'm attempting involve an not an unfamiliar medical procedure, but on an unfamiliar species. So I get to ignore difficulty.
Okay.
But information would probably be valuable. I don't have obtain information, unfortunately.
Say, let's do it.
Yeah.
We all got determination, right?
Yeah.
So a question everyone forgot was, what is this part of his brain? This part of his brain looks like Tuzon to you. It looks like it could be a telepathic center.
Which would make sense why it's dying, because it has that link. So I'll pass that information on. It looks like the telepathic part of the creature. So probably how it was communicating with whatever the being was in the vessel.
Well, if that part of its brain is damaged, it may not be able to communicate with us. And if we remove it, which is the only option we seem to have, still will have no way to communicate with us. We should also, after the operation is a success, work on a new translation matrix for it.
Sounds like a perfect project for you, and
I look forward to it.
all right. Places, everybody. Let's take care of some microscopic brain surgery.
So in this case, the difficulty here is going to be a 5. It's going to be a medicine control. And anyone can assist that they would like. It's going to all be the same medicine control.
So I have a surgery focus. Would my quick or the increased difficulty of an unfamiliar species come into play?
Yeah, it would.
So it's going to drop it from a 5 to a 4.
Yep, down to a 4.
I'll give you for a third die.
And I'll assist. He said it was.
So I can re-roll that complication.
Lenaris can assist for free. So Montgomery, you can still assist.
Oh,
also.
and I crit on that. Crit on. Wait, no. Oh, huh. Okay. Wait, I did not have a focus there, so it would just be 1 success. I forgot to click that.
I re-rolled and got a 0, but it's not a complication. So I got 3 successes.
And would I still have my focus of cybernetics applied if I'm watching after the drones?
Yeah, sure. I'll allow that.
And that is control medicine?
Yes.
It is indeed.
Okay. Yeah.
So I see a total of 7 successes.
Well, I only had 1 because I accidentally had that the focus applicable was yes, but I didn't have a focus, so it's just
So
1.
I got 3, 4. And
So-
I should have just been rolling 1 for the assist.
Oh, yep,
Yeah.
sorry.
So we would have 5 successes.
5. Yeah,
So 1 moment.
1 momentum. Cool. So on the screen, you see this is too small for you to even see the nanites deployed. Like they would be deployed in a cloud in the atmosphere, but you can't even see it. It's so small. Actually, the only person, well, maybe you can see it. Tuzon, you can see it. And Montgomery, with your enhanced vision, you could probably see it also. I would say the only people in the room who probably can't are Linaris and Finley. Finley, who's not even watching. But the nanites on your screen, they enter the bug's system. They make their way to his brain, and using micro phasers or something else, they've completely vaporized that part of his brain and cauterized it off. And it looks like the operation is a success, and his vital signs are floating. They're not falling anymore, but they are floating there.
Well,
and on the screen, it's a magnification because you can't even see this perceptively very well. His little arms and legs are kind of starting to kick, whereas before he was just not moving at all.
So I just look at Linaris and Montgomery. Seems to have gone off. Looks like he's starting to respond. We'll keep monitoring him. And I would start working on that communication protocol.
Montgomery will look at him and look back to you and smile, and he's like, "Yes, sir." And he'll rig up the computer to immediately alert him and any of the medical staff if the vital signs start to fall. And yeah, he'll start working on a xenolinguistics program.
And you guys had 3 intervals left. You could spend a momentum to take that check down to 1, or you could just spend the 2, and then you'd have 1 interval left.
I think it's okay to just have this one take up 2.
Yeah. He's stable now.
So you have 1 interval left before I change scenes. You could do something else, or we could see what Isha is up to on the bridge.
Here's a really weird question I'm going to ask. So, since I've communicated with this thing in the past, albeit briefly, would I, using my blood, be able to maybe give it some of mine and have it replicate the part of the brain that was missing as like something new rather than dead? If you think that's too much of a stretch, I'll take a no. But
it's kind of a leap. You've never seen this thing, like the silver blood stuff that was on that vessel. You've never seen it used. You don't have an idea of what its purpose is. You did make a telepathic connection with that system before, and that did replicate the piece of Linaris that we have in the lab still. It would be a stretch. You could still try it, connecting to this thing somehow. You know pretty much what you'd have to do is you'd have to walk in that containment room, and you'd probably have to make physical contact with it.
Right. And there's no way I could, like, say, send a sample of my blood in there, correct?
You could. I think the difficulty would be doing that discreetly in this room full of people.
Fair. I'll attempt it later. We might not have as many people in here.
An interesting factoid, Linaris, is after this surgery with the nanites is complete, your headache has actually started to subside.
And, okay. Linaris oddly kind of perks up a bit and like, that's odd. And he'll just kind of
something specialist.
I started to have a bit of a headache whenever I walked in here for some reason, but after saving this thing, it went away.
Pull out a medical tricorder and start to scan Linaris.
What specifically would you be looking for?
Brainwave patterns. See if anything was interrupting them.
Okay.
Or if there's any damage.
Let's do a medicine insight. Difficulty 5.
Okay.
Tuzon, you can assist if you want to stop what you're doing and start examining Linaris if you'd like.
Sure, he's piqued my interest because he mentioned something.
Okay. So both of you, yep, it's a medicine insight. The difficulty is 5.
Insight to 7. Let's hope I double crit.
I have an insight of 10. I don't. Would infectious diseases come into play?
I could see if you are concerned. I will only, if you want to assist and use that focus, I'll give you an answer right away on if he has an infectious disease, if you want to use that focus.
Sure.
So that might be giving you not much information. Okay, so no help at all. Okay. So I see 2 successes and you needed 5.
Right.
Montgomery, based on what you can tell from Lenoris, he looks like a middle-aged Bajoran male. Looks like he might have a little bit of stress, but, that's about it.
Not detecting anything on any brainwave frequencies or patterns. They seem to be stable. I'll continue to investigate. If you have any other headaches, please let me know.
As I'm scanning at him going, well, I'm not picking up any kind of disease or infection that could have caused a headache.
And then on cue, from the room in the corner, you hear, absolutely brilliant. Instant, Montezuma. If you get a moment, let's come here. I have a first draft of something we could try on you.
I'll just look to Tuzon.
If you want to go work in my office, I won't say no.
Thank you, sir.
I'll walk over to Finley. Ensign Montgomery is needed elsewhere on this ship right now. He can meet up with you later, Doctor.
Very good, nurse. Very good.
I'm going to go to the office.
And as the scene fades away, you guys notice that Margaret the chicken walks over to the containment room and just sort of looks through the glass.
Oh, no.
I'm going to have a radioactive chicken.
But on the bridge of the Hope, it's actually moving towards the end of Alpha Shift, and who is seated in the chair is Lieutenant Isha. Isha, you have the other command staff, Commander Lovely and the captain off. They are on the USS Imperial for a meeting with the Admiral, so you are in charge. I've also thrown some supporting characters on the board if anyone would like to introduce them and bring them into play. That's also an option.
Well, Mr. Grecken, what is the current ETA of our lovely... I did it again. You know what I'm trying to say, Grecken. When are they going to be back?
Lieutenant, let's see. I've got Lovely. She's getting ready to come back on the ship. So, unfortunately, if you wanted to fire any weapons, I think your window is closing.
I don't think there's any need to fire weapons unless... And she just sort of solicits the entire bridge crew, unless someone's not telling me something needs to be shot.
Scanners are clear, says Mendoza.
Now, unless you feel like shooting a subspace eddy, sir, you're going to have a hard time finding something to hit. And that would be Aaron Jensen.
Great. Well, as they say, no news is good news, I suppose.
It certainly can seem that way.
And Grecken turns to you, Isha. So, Lieutenant, let me know, how's it feel to sit the chair?
It makes me wonder why the captain hasn't patted it more.
Do you feel the need to give any long speeches about morality?
No, not really, but I have a sudden need to chastise a certain person's taste in music.
Oh, yeah? No one I know.
I don't know. I figure they're a fan of a certain song that involves working from one time to another.
Stop. Don't.
Oh, you must be talking about Jensen, because I have impeccable taste.
If by impeccable you mean deplorable, yes, Kraken.
I am deeply, deeply offended. And I was going to
Yes.
invite you. I was going to invite you to meet my family, but you know what? Offers off the table. You're the worst captain I've ever been. I've been on a ship with.
Why, thank you, Kraken. Coming from a Tellarite, I will take that as a compliment.
And then Grecken looks to Mendoza. Mendoza, we're all wanting to know, have you challenged the lieutenant to phaser training? You have the highest score on this ship.
I have. Should I?
I don't know if you want to keep that record or if anybody's interested. I can't fire phaser, but you know.
And here, there's another ensign on board the ship that's actually quite good with a phaser as well.
You hear that, Mendoza? You might have some competition.
I welcome competition. It just makes us get even better at what we do.
Yeah, the ensign here scored a perfect 10 out of 10 on the phaser simulation.
Well, simulations are one thing. Actual live fire is another. Tell me, Grecken, do we have anything in our projected flight plan even after the command staff returns?
Nope. The only orders I have is to fly in formation with that huge, scary-looking thing out there. He points to the Imperial.
I rather like the look of that ship.
Yes, I quite like the angles on it. It seems more rugged than typical Starfleet design. But no, more to the point, if we don't have to do anything outside the formation of the fleet, then I think there's probably time to hold a friendly phaser competition in the holodeck. The
whole weaving between the cells of the Imperial, that's just for your enjoyment, everybody. I just wanted to show you how skillful I am. It's not strictly on the books, but you know, and he flies the ship a little bit closer just to give you a good look of the nacelles on an Imperial class. Oh, not too close. Sorry. Don't worry about that. Wasn't a problem.
Lieutenant, you already scraped up a couple of shuttles. How about you not scrape up the ship?
Yes, I'd rather not have to repair a dome.
Such a hostile work environment. I wasn't responsible for either of those. Except the one time I did crash us through a ship. That was my fault. I will own that one.
Mendoza's
just start to mentally tune him out.
Mendoza's just giving him like the really look.
A phaser competition, you said, Lieutenant Isha?
Yes, wouldn't be anything too fancy. Just, standard targets at range. Whoever is the most accurate wins. The prize is to be determined.
That is something I would love to see. Is it Mendoza or you? Is it you and Isha? Why don't we start with the top?
I welcome all competition. We can open it up to the ship.
Indeed, gives the doctors aboard an excuse to brush up on their training.
Yes, because we all know doctors don't do well with hitting things.
Well,
all right,
they
Jensen,
may have Oh, go ahead. Jensen,
let's maybe place a friendly wager here. I'm going to say, based on the comments that Isha said, that I'm going to bet that Mendoza is going to score the highest score. And if I win, when you're on duty next, you're going to have to play through the loudspeakers of the ship the song of my choice. What do you say?
Only if you do the same for me when a certain, and he's kind of looking through the crew manifest, a certain Ensign 8 of 13 wins.
Okay, yeah. Sounds like a deal. All right, Mendoza,
and if I win, gentlemen, you're all banned from 9 to 5 for a week.
I thought it was
That'd be
supposed to
more of a
well,
blessing than a curse.
So it is a good prize.
It would be indeed.
This has turned into such a hostile work environment. I thought I knew all you people. On cue, the turbolift doors open and in steps Commander Lovely. She has an air about her. She looks even more irritated today than usual, if that's even possible. And just as she walks in, the chime that designates the end of Alpha Shift rings through the ship. Then she walks to the command chair. Lieutenant, you are relieved.
And I, of course, get up very promptly and give her the seat. Yes, Commander, nothing really to report. We had a minor incident down in one of the wards, but it was handled quite readily. Other than that, the only report we have is that Grekin apparently has a new song he wishes to blast through the entire ship.
Is that true, Mr. Grekin? Do you need another reprimand on your record? No more reprimands. I'm good. The lieutenant here is just making a joke. And Lovely says, very well, very well. Lieutenant Isha and Mendoza, you are relieved. Mr. Jensen and Grekin, I'd like you to serve a second shift on Beta Shift. I believe you could use some more training.
Speaking of training, sir, I was thinking that since we don't have anything in the schedule, that I could set up a rudimentary phaser targeting test on the holodeck with your permission.
Yes, we do have a senior staff meeting in 2 hours, but until then, I'd leave you to do whatever you want. I'll leave it to you and Ensign Mendoza, whatever you feel free to do. Of course, just send me a report if your exercise yields any results that are worth reporting higher up.
Understood, sir.
Aye, sir.
And then, yeah, I guess I head off to a holodeck to go get that going.
I will quickly follow behind you.
And as you two walk off the bridge, you hear, Lieutenant, what are we doing so close to the Imperial? Maintain standard range. What are you doing?
I tried to tell him, Commander.
And we are actually going to transition to your office, Tuzan. A few minutes have passed. You've left the lab and you've made your way back to your office. And you're looking at the daily reports of all the treat, all the stuff that's going on. Mostly it's just getting the last of the Hastings crew up to speed. No more fatalities since the 10 that you suffered before.
I'm getting all the reports from like physical therapy, occupational therapy, all of this.
Yeah, and the good news is Commander Tuvor has pretty much recovered and he is scheduled to depart the ship today. So around.
Sorry, can you repeat it one more time? You broke up badly there.
Oh, I did?
Mm-hmm.
So I was saying, fortunately, Commander Tuvor, he is scheduled to depart the ship today. He's pretty much recovered. But Tuzan, entering into your office is your intern, Lieutenant Hera. You notice that she looks a little upset, and she has a pad in her hand, and she passes the pad to you.
Lieutenant, what can I do for you?
And as you take the pad, she looks sort of, her gaze goes over your head like she's not looking directly in your eyes. Just, Doctor, I would like, what I handed you is I would like to tenure my resignation effective immediately.
Your resignation? Why are you giving this to me?
Well, Commander Tuvor, during the operation, I could have killed him. I've practiced this procedure countless times. And when it came to it, in the moment, I made a critical mistake. I could have killed him. And what's worse, I criticized the specialist. It wasn't my best moment, and maybe I'm just not cut out for this.
Lieutenant, we all make mistakes. We all have our bad days. in order to learn, you have to make mistakes. That's been a fundamental of almost every single civilization that has ever come up. You have to make mistakes to learn. Yes, you made a mistake. Yes, you could have killed somebody. Anything we do could accidentally kill somebody. But what comes from it is the learning. You now know that that's just something that we need to practice, level head, and just think through our actions. Go a little bit slower. It all comes with time. I've been doing this for quite a bit, and Lord knows I've made mistakes.
Thank you for the kind words, Doctor. I've been training for this moment for so long. I expected it to go differently.
In surgery, we always expect it to go perfectly. The reality is very few surgeries are perfect.
It's not quite as advertised. In my time working with Dr. Finley, he's brilliant. That's very obvious, but it's a different set of challenges that I just wasn't expecting.
Yes, I've noticed that I am very different from Dr. Finley. I apologize for that abrupt change.
Well, I'm sorry if I disappointed, Doctor. If you're willing to give me a shot, I can perhaps give it a little longer. I'm just not certain that I'm cut out for this.
I just think that with time and experience comes wisdom, and it just give it a little bit more time. You're very early in your career. Give it a little bit more time. You will figure out what you want to do. Maybe you choose not medical, although I think you all will skilled when it comes to the medical field.
Thank you, Doctor. She looks down at one of your displays is beeping. Looks like you have a transmission. I will get out of your hair. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you for your patience.
Anytime, Lieutenant. If you have any questions or want more advice, or if I can help you with anything, this is your position. You're here to learn, and I wouldn't be a good teacher if I didn't give you time to ask questions.
Thank you, sir. I quickly learned that my first day here that the things that I thought I knew are actually so far from what I need to know. Maybe I can get there after all.
I have faith in you.
And she does look a little more energized by this conversation. That she nods to you and she turns and walks away. But what she was drawing attention to was you do have a transmission on your display, Tuzon. It's a transmission from Starfleet Medical.
I look at the display, hit the button, and to accept the communication.
And on your display is Dr. Ogawa. She's one of the chief officers at Starfleet Medical. She's your boss.
I look at her. Dr. Ogawa.
Hello, Dr. Tuzon. How is life at the border treating you?
Well, we had a little bit of a eventful incident with everything happening with the survivors of the USS Hastings. Other than that, it's been pretty much business as usual.
I wish this were purely a social call, Edon, but I've gotten a lot of communications about the Hope lately, and I really wanted to hear your side of the story. Let me give you some highlights from this report that I'm mentioning. So, my report states that during a surgery performed on stardate 74196.4, you allowed a junior officer to lead the surgery, and this is a junior officer not certified to operate as an attending surgeon. Then complications arose when your intern slipped with a laser scalpel. And finally, that you were using stimulants for the entire operation. Is that correct, Doctor? Is there anything that needs to be corrected?
No, that seems pretty accurate, although I officially led the surgery. The specialist was part of the surgery, and since he had helped stabilize the patient in the moment when we rescued him, I thought it prudent to also have him assist. In my intern did have a lapse of judgment for a moment, but we were able to save the patient. And at the end of the day, that's what I think matters.
Edon, I've served on starships myself, so I know the stress and the challenges that come with that, but this is not a good looking report to have on. You've been on the Hope, what, a week? This is not a good way to get started.
Well, with all due respect, Doctor, one doesn't expect to have 100 critically injured and not stable patients coming in immediately after taking charge.
Fair enough. And in fact, in that case, well, how is your plan for handling the Hastings survivors? How's it holding up?
Seems to be going well. Most of them are in the last bits of treatment, the therapies, making sure everything is up and around. The patient from that surgery is actually scheduled to depart from the Hope Imperial later today. So overall, success. We did end up losing some of the patients that were more critically injured. But when we're dealing with that situation the way that we had to, I'm surprised we didn't lose more, to be quite honest, Doctor.
Well, you have some interesting people on your staff there. I won't read you the report that I got from Dr. Lupus. He's not very happy.
That I put him lower down on the response?
Amongst many other things, he was in line for your job, and for many reasons, we saw that he would be unfit for an administration position on a vessel such as yours. And then, of course, your record gave you a certainly higher up consideration than him. However, he doesn't really see it that way. He feels like, frankly, that he could do your job better than you. That's a situation you're going to have to resolve, unfortunately. He is a very good surgeon.
I completely agree with that. And that's why when I designated the emergency tiered system that I came up with, I put him, yes, a little bit lower, making him in charge of Delta Team, but Delta Team, in many ways, a linchpin of the entire operation.
I can see that, but I think perhaps Dr. Lupus would, it'd be good for him to get some illumination on that fact.
I tried to explain it to him, but I believe kind of the heat of the moment in which we were in at that time, that most likely was not received by him. But I will see if I can get him away from his work and talk to him for a little bit and see if we can reason out a little bit of that.
Thank you, Commander. I'll let you go. There's a lot I can't say, but especially not over an open comm. But you're going to need all of your staff behind you in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Doctor. I can read between the lines a little bit on that, and being this close to the border, that doesn't surprise me. I'll make sure that we're all one cohesive unit and ready to respond at a moment's notice.
That's very good to hear, Commander.
Is there anything else I can do for you, Doctor?
No, I think that was enough. It was very good to see you, Edon. Take care.
You do the same. Make sure that you keep everything up there at Starfleet Medical.
We'll do. We'll keep the patients moving.
And we'll do the same out here. Hope out.
And she hits the button and she is replaced by just the logo of Starfleet Medical.
I'll just take a moment, kind of think at my desk, looking at things, and then tap my comm badge. Dr. Tuzon to Dr. Lupus, what is your location?
A moment passes and Lupus says, "This is Dr. Lupus. I am engaged in surgery. Do you need something immediately?"
No, it is not urgent. I was just wanting to see if we could chat.
And what would this chat be pertaining to?
Just the general running ship. I'll let you return to your surgery. Let me know when you're done, and we can figure out a time that we can both meet.
Thank you, Commander. I will contact you later when it is convenient.
Understood. Tuzan out.
And we're actually going to transition to the transporter room. So what's happened is, Lenaris, you actually requested Commander Tuvor, he's getting ready to depart, and he requested that you walk him to the transporter room. So you guys have walked down the hallway. You're walking together, you and Tuvor side by side, and behind you, actually tagging along, is Zaro, the Denobulan that you also rescued off the Hastings.
The one who helped me electrocute him.
Yes. She's keeping a respectable distance, maybe remembering that fact that, yeah, she did help you electrocute him.
Is there a specific reason that you requested me, Commander?
Well, Specialist, it is a common misconception that Vulcans do not value their own lives. And that could not be further from the truth. While logic often dictates us take steps that put our own lives at risk, I, in fact, value my life very highly. And I wanted to tell you that I appreciate the efforts that you personally undertook to ensure that I am here today.
And he kind of like gives out one, like, almost like I'm not sure what to put, like a laugh. And I'm like, well, I believe it was your chief engineer, or were you chief engineer, Zaro? Was it?
And Zaro, she kind of bounces up as you say that. She says, yes, I guess I was chief engineer of the Hastings before it exploded.
It was more due in part to the efforts of Zaro and Commander Tuzan that I was even able to do so. If anything, you should be thanking them, not me.
I sense a degree of modesty in you, Specialist. Modesty does have its place. However, it is also logical to take praise in yourself when praise is valid.
Well, all the same, I appreciate it, Commander. It's, in my experience, I haven't found it frequent that I've been complimented by, not to offend your species, but I've rarely been complimented by a Vulcan. So it's nice, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Indeed, Specialist. And on that note, I sense a bit of trouble in you. Is there any comfort that I can provide?
I appreciate it, but we had to work on something this morning. It left me just a tad stressed out. Had what appeared to be migraine-esque headaches. I'm still coming down a bit from it, but I should be fine.
Very well. I trust that you understand your own condition much better than I ever could. And he has something in his hand that he's been carrying, and he hands it to you, and it looks like a black piece of metal. And he says, my time with other species has taught me that many others find comfort or a degree of attachment to material objects. And he hands you the thing that he has in his hand.
And looking at it, is it just like a metal bar, or is it like a box of some sort?
Looks like a piece of debris.
Pardon me, Commander, but what is this?
This is the only remaining piece of the USS Hastings, which, coincidentally, was removed from me by you in surgery.
He kind of tries to find the words, but he can't. And so he kind of just... I appreciate it, Commander.
I present it to you as a token of appreciation and just a reminder that bravery, even in times where it does not seem applicable, is always a good trait. It may not always be logical, but it is most often right.
Now, all the same, Commander, I appreciate it. Is there another ship that you're being stationed at, or are you being recalled for a short amount of time?
I'm being recalled back to Starbase 34 for continued examination and debriefing. I do not know of my next assignment.
Well, from going over your record for the brief time that I did, whatever ship receives you, I'm sure will be receiving a damn good XO.
Why, thank you, Specialist. And he steps up to the transporter pad, and he gives you a Vulcan salute. He says, until our paths cross again, Specialist, I wish you peace and long life.
Peace and long life to you as well, Commander. And I'll return the salute.
And Zaro, at that point, she's standing between you and the transporter pad, and she says, well, I don't have a lump of rock or debris to give you, Specialist. Sorry about that. And then she leans in without even giving you any hint and gives you a kiss on the cheek. And she says, well, if you ever find your way to Starbase 34, why don't you look me up?
You kind of, for the first time, if any other crew members are walking by the hallway to the transporter room, he is very visibly turning red. I'll be sure to do so.
And Tibor says, Master Chief, if you don't mind, I think we've taken enough of the Specialist time. And she steps on the transporter pad, and as they are dematerializing, she gives you a wink. And then she and Tuvor they disappear.
That's... Nobulans. They're interesting people. Have to remember that. And he'll kind of toss the piece of the bulkhead in his hand, just like, all right, guess we have to get back to work. And he'll kind of stand there and observe the transporter pad and walk out after a brief amount of time.
Okay. And the next scene that we move to is on the holodeck. And we have Lieutenant Isha and Ensign Mendoza.
Ensign 8 of 13 will also be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's have her show up first. I'm actually going to take over Mendoza because there's a little bit of things that need to happen on this scene first.
Okay.
But Mendoza says to you, Isha, oh, Lieutenant, you want to try to beat my score?
Well, I mean, it should be fairly easy to beat your score, but I was hoping to save that for the main event.
A little bit of trash talk is not... It does not go unnoticed. I can appreciate that. All right, so I have a perfect score, so I think the only way you're going to beat me is by actually completing the course faster.
And what difficulty did you have it set at, Mendoza?
Oh, the highest difficulty, of course. Why would I operate any lower than that?
Well, the reason I ask is because there's a well-known secret among most tactical officers and chiefs of security. We have a special mode that is, shall we say, beyond the standard difficulties available to the crew.
Well, I would be happy to work on any challenge that you have, Lieutenant. I think you'll see that I'm... Maybe I might surprise you.
I guess we'll see. Computer, please activate phaser training program SETI 1. Bump it up to the highest difficulty authorization, Isha Alpha Alpha Tango 5.
And the computer acknowledges, and as you guys get ready to fire, waiting for the targets to come in, Mendoza says to you, so Isha, what do you think about the Hope?
Well, it's certainly a sedate command. It's nice and peaceful, which is perhaps heresy for a security officer to say, but there's nothing wrong with not having to put out fires every 5 hours.
Indeed. And with that, let's do Mendoza versus Isha. Let's just do an opposed check. I think we're just going to do security control, and whoever has the most successes is the one that comes out on top.
All right, gentlemen's agreement not to use momentum threat.
Oh, no.
So
I cannot
let's
give you
see.
that agreement.
Well, then I'm definitely spending that momentum.
All right.
Let's see. Yeah, I'll just roll 3 dice. Let's see what happens. 3 successes is respectable.
Oh God.
Hey, I got him to dump all his threat.
True.
Perhaps this was just as planned.
And I accidentally moved the map, so oops.
I was wondering why Mendoza's sheet wasn't there for me to use.
So I believe that gives me 5 dice.
Wow.
Oh, God.
I think I've got 7 successes.
Yeah, I see 7.
So what happens, Isha, is you do a respectable job here. I'd say with the 3 successes, you're doing well. However, Mendoza is moving with inhuman speed. Like, he is moving so fast. It's almost like he's anticipating the targets before they even appear.
So
You've never seen anyone with a phaser as accurate as him. It is remarkable.
So noting this happening, would it be fair for me to say that it's within my wheelhouse to begin thinking that he's not baseline human at this point?
You could give me a medicine insight. I'd say with what you just saw, the difficulty would be 2.
Don't have a focus here unless emergency medicine somehow applies.
No, it's not.
Oh, did I get any momentum, by the way?
I'll give you all of that as momentum. Yeah, you can have 3 momentum.
Cool. I'm going to spend all of it.
Okay.
3 successes.
There's no way with the speed that you just saw that he's human. There's no way. He looks human, and his personnel file said human, but there's no way he could be human.
So, as you know, the program winds down, I just simply turn to him and say, "So, Ensign, I believe you've outplayed your hand here. When were you planning on telling me that you were an augment?"
Oh, I'm... Crap, the commander is going to kill me. No, Lieutenant, I am actually not an augment. I knew I was getting a little too excited about this. I just can't back down from a challenge. It's actually quite... I'm just really excited to be on this ship, I've got to say. If you don't mind, Lieutenant, 1 second. And he hits a button, actually on his sleeve, which doesn't really make any sense. And then all of a sudden, all around you, the entire like field of vision in front of you all kind of distorts into, like, everything gets a little bit darker, a little more purple, and this all around the edges of most things look a little fuzzy. He says, okay, now we can talk. Yeah, so Lieutenant, I'm sorry. I did sort of overstep myself there. I got a little excited. The Hope has been a little bit of a side project for me.
Go on.
Well, actually, I guess it doesn't really hurt at this point, since you probably figured out I am not who I said I am. And his appearance shimmers and is replaced by a human-esque looking man. He's wearing a grayish uniform, looks sort of like a very close form-fitting uniform, and he's wearing an insignia that looks like a Starfleet Delta, but a very different design. And then he's got Master Chief rank insignia on his collar. It's a uniform you have never seen before.
So I just sort of look around at the surroundings, look at the uniform, and I say, let me guess, Department of Temporal Investigations.
Not exactly. My name is Master Chief Brott. I'm from... Gosh, I really was the worst person on my team to be having this conversation, but here we are. I'm from a... let's just say a version of the Federation like you.
Gonna have to be a little bit more specific there, I feel.
Well, okay. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this. So I am from your distant future, not yours specifically, but a distant future. That's probably giving you as much details as you might understand with 24th century temporal mechanics.
You seem to forget that, that's how we got into the Federation in the first place. So humor me.
It's really interesting too, which is one of the reasons I really wanted to spend time with you, Lieutenant, because in my century, the Xenets are completely extinct. You're actually the first one I've ever seen.
Well, as we seem to like saying, that's of course all is planned.
Well, why I'm here, and like I said, the Hope is kind of a side project for me. So on Stardate 74294.86, the Hope will send out a general distress call. Admiral Lavelle and the fleet will cross the border to investigate, because you'll be in Klingon territory, but despite their efforts, no trace of your ship has ever been found. It's the strangest thing and something of a mystery in my time, and it's a part of one of my hobbies. I've tried to scan that Stardate, and this is the closest I could get to that moment, which is really perplexing. We can usually pinpoint and target a Stardate, exactly, but in your case, we can't. This is the closest that we can get. If you wouldn't mind on that date, when you're sending the distress call, could you also send a signal out on frequency Delta 1153? I'll be monitoring that signal, and hopefully I can follow it to observe what happens to the ship.
I certainly could do such a thing. Out of character, how long is it between the current Stardate and that Stardate?
About 4 weeks.
4 weeks, got it. All right. So you should, of course, notes all this mentally down and says, very well. And of course, I have received the required briefing that I'm not supposed to ask really any pressing questions as to the why the distress call. But as they say, if I were not to send a distress call at this point, it would cause a paradox, which I'm sure you would be well versed in.
Well, the funny thing is I don't know exactly who sends the distress call. I know the ship had received some casualties at that point, but the details on exactly what happens on your ship are kind of sketchy.
Well, assuming you don't just bugger off to whatever time you came from after this conversation, maybe you can stick around and find out.
Unfortunately, I do have to go back. I have mounds and mounds of paperwork to fill in. And I wasn't actually too worried about you talking to anyone about our conversation because if you can see where we are, I've actually moved us to a pocket dimension. It's a place completely outside of time entirely for us to talk. So when I return you, it'll be the exact moment that we left. But unfortunately, I will not be with you. We call this area, we call it a Mercer field because it removes your agency. Little inside joke.
Oh, God, out of character. That was good.
That is that.
Oh, God.
That's a pretty damn good joke.
I appreciate that.
It took me half a second once it clicked.
Yeah. So I just sort of smile at him and I say, I have no idea what conversation you were talking about. I was simply having a little bit of fun on the holodeck by myself. And then I give him a wink.
Thank you, Lieutenant. For what it's worth, I'm certainly a fan of the Hope. The mission that you guys took in Klingon space is incredibly brave. I don't know if I would have been quite so bold in the way that you guys were. And, a lot did change after that. So, you have a fan here. But I need to get back. I've got a lot of paperwork to write. Commander Anastase, she's going to have my head. But I think I've covered my bases enough. But again, Yeah, thanks for letting me beat you with a phaser.
You're welcome. Though next time, do a little bit more research about appearances, especially human reaction times. It was a dead giveaway.
I always seem to be the one, don't I? Well, you wouldn't know that, but whenever we have a situation, I'm always the one.
Yes, you are.
And just as immediately or as quickly as he appeared, he vanishes and you are returned back to the normal looking holodeck. You stand there by yourself. And forgive me, this is the moment where 8 of 13 arrives into the holodeck. I'd say 8 of 13 as you walk in, Lieutenant Isha might look a little taken aback because this all happens immediately. Like you might have just walked in on something.
Actually, I would say she's probably rather calm for what just happened, almost as if this is like second hat to her.
It's pretty typical.
You know, average Tuesday. But yeah, she sees 8 of 13 walk in and says, I see you got the quick message I sent out about the phaser training. How skilled are you?
I like to consider myself at least somewhat skilled, Lieutenant.
Excellent. Well, let's get you started. I can record your score. And though the message was brief I sent out, basically the way it works is whoever wants to rotate in here will have about a week to go through this training course. Whoever gets the most points will win a reward. If there is a tie, we'll, of course, do a runoff competition. But you're free to complete the course at your own leisure.
Of course, Lieutenant. Computer, set up a phaser training. Highest difficulty, please.
And if you'd like, you guys can do that roll again, the oppose security control, to see how it goes if you're competing against each other.
Oh, no. Isha's not actually competing in the contest. Her whole goal there was to see what was up with Mendoza. So 8 of 13 would just be doing the roll on their own. But as I said, sort of out of character. Basically, this is kind of your chance to strut your stuff if you're a security NPC. So if anyone has any supporting characters and things of that nature, this would be the time to show them off.
Alrighty. I'll use that last momentum for a third die. And just straight control security.
Yep.
Alright.
And what we're just looking for is number of successes. That'll determine how well you've done.
Yeah. Alright. Okay. That's 2 successes.
2 successes, that's probably average.
Yeah.
I would say it's pretty standard.
As the simulation sort of finishes, just kind of looks around. I tend to do better on these, Lieutenant. I'm glad you've given us a week for this.
Well, if you would like some friendly advice, you're leading your targets too much.
I appreciate it. She kind of scratches his head. You kind of see what remnants of Borg implants there are left. Well, at least I have the time. Thank you for the advice, Lieutenant. And he'll kind of bow and he will walk out.
Alrighty. Out of curiosity, would any of the medical staff have walked in for this little competition, or are we simply just going to say security folks come in?
You know what? Tuzan will come by, hearing that there was a competition to see how well he can do.
Okay, I'll toss Tuzan on there.
Howdy, Lieutenant.
Hello, Doctor. Here for the competition?
Yeah, announcement came across my screen, and I figured, why not? I know I'm not a great shot, but you never quite know, do you?
No, indeed. I've seen complete novices with a phaser score perfect scores before.
Well, let's see how well I do.
In before 5 complications.
He shoots you.
And
Phaser blows up in Tuzon's hand.
well, I'm just going to do a straight roll 2d20 with no focus and see what happens.
Maybe he misses all of the targets. Yep. With 0 successes, Tuzon, you hit nothing.
Doctor, don't take this the wrong way, but are you this accurate in your surgeries?
I promise you, I do much better on things that are closer and with smaller instruments.
Well, I think I can at least start to fix this problem. I take the phaser type 2 away from him, and I give him the smaller phaser type 1. I say give that a try.
If you insist.
Yeah, see, you're with the smaller instrument, you are indeed better, but you're not quite acquiring targets the way you should. I'm trying to think of a good medical analogy here. Imagine you're blasting, shall we say, cancer cells with some form of radiation. You don't want to bombard the specific area too much because it overloads the surrounding tissue. You want to sort of spread it out. Same idea here is you're focusing too much on a specific area and letting the targets outside of that area sort of fall by the wayside.
That makes sense. I'll make sure I work on it. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Of course. And, Doctor, I will say that even though the Hope is a medical ship, I do expect most of the, shall we say, senior staff or those in charge to have adequate security training. Please see to it that you have a sufficient score on the basic difficulty level by week's end. Otherwise, I may have to have you come in for additional training.
I'll see what I can do, Lieutenant.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate it.
And you guys would have just gotten a ping that senior staff meeting that Lovely was talking about will be happening soon.
Well, I guess we have a meeting to get to.
Indeed, shall we? As I motion to the door.
Yep. Off we go.
And the next scene that we move to is in the hallway of the Hope. And Lenaris, as you're walking away doing your thing, I think you probably would have just come out of the transporter room. You hear coming up behind you. It says, Furel.
He kind of starts to rub his temples. Yes, Dr. Lupus.
Dr. Lupus, he kind of looks you up and down as he walks over to you, and he gets a little close, a little too close, and he's standing very close.
I back away.
Furel, I was surprised to hear that you came on board, and we've not spoken. Did you think that things could not go unsaid between us?
He kind of like raises an eyebrow. What in the hell are you talking about, Doctor?
I know that we did not exactly end on agreeable terms, but I would have hoped that our relationship wouldn't have been completely discarded when you left Bajor.
Well, from what I remember, you were doing quite the job on Bajor, but I left for... Out of character, I'm trying to remember, what was the name of that colony planet that they visited with Ro? Was it like... or Valos 2? I think.
We can roll it because I can't remember it either.
Yeah. Well, I was on Bajor for a brief time. I went to Valos 2 soon after. If I remember, you were quite competent. I hold nothing against you, even if it might have ended badly at first.
And Lenars, you really have, this feels like a very intimate thing that he is describing. Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. And you cannot recall getting this memory at all from the original Lenaris. This is not something that you have ever copied before. You know Lupus, like when you came on board, you'd heard about him, but not like this. This sounds like something, yeah, it's not a memory that you've pulled down.
Right.
Lupus, he says, well,
Just judging from how he's talking to me, would I be able in my head to determine maybe the kind of relationship that Lenaris and Lupus had?
well, a Bajoran Cardassian.
Yeah,
a Bajoran Cardassian relationship of any kind until just recently would have been really taboo.
Mm-hmm.
So you could infer a little bit from that, but beyond that, yeah, the circumstances you cannot recall.
Okay. And I believe Lupus was starting to say something before I asked that.
Well, okay, Furel, I guess if it's going to be like that, I wasn't expecting much, but I thought at least we could be sociable. The coldness is not something I was expecting, but I guess specialist, I'll let you continue on your way.
And I'll kind of hold out my hand for a handshake and like, you're doing good work here. Hopefully we can become more sociable as time goes on.
Perhaps. He looks at your hand. Just so you know, your secrets for what you did in the laboratory are safe with me. I am not completely, well, the coldness you've given me will not be returned with vengeance.
I appreciate it.
Lenars, if you can give me a command insight difficulty 2, I can give you some ideas maybe about what he's talking about here.
Yeah, I have some inferences of my own, but yeah, let's do that. You said insight command?
Yeah, insight command difficulty 2.
Counseling as a focus?
I don't think so. This is more recalling memory or perhaps reading someone. Actually, it's probably more memory recall and maybe even history.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right, insight command. Okay. Okay.
Perfect. He is most likely talking about something you would have done in the Maquis, or at least the original Lenaris might have done. And with your specialty, at least the original specialty, and creating toxic things, it might not be something good.
Yeah. Well. And I'm assuming that after we do the handshake and he says that and I thank him, he walks away? Or does he...
Yeah, he's storming off. Like as he's walking down the hallway, as people are walking up to him, he's telling them to get out of the way. Like, get out of the way. Move. He's not moving out of their way or trying to like weave around them to the hallway. He's making them clear a path for him.
Okay. Okay. I'll have to make a mental note to visit the original sometime soon. And I'll just kind of... this Lenaris looks confused, and he's just going to head down the hallway the opposite direction.
And while all of that was going on, we're going to transition to the briefing room. And in the main briefing room, we have most of the senior staff, in addition to Capere and Admiral Lavelle. Admiral Lavelle is the one in charge of the fleet at the border. He's also the de facto commanding officer of the Imperial. But as you all take a seat at the table, he looks around. Thank you, everyone, for your time. We have a lot of work ahead, so I will try to be brief here. We've received intelligence reports both from refugees crossing the border and confirmed by Mr. Capere about the conditions on the colony of Algorab 2. Now, the colony seems to be a dumping ground for those deemed unfit or undesirable to work in the Klingon dilithium mines. They're facing starvation, disease, and are in need of widespread assistance. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. As soon as she can be made ready, the hope is to set course for Algorab 2 with the goal of providing whatever help you're able to give the Klingon or to give the Romulan people. And he activates on the map, and the map starts from your location, goes across the border into Klingon space, and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, and stops at a spot deep inside of Klingon territory. It's about 45 light years away. Now I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Yes, this involves the Hope crossing the border into Klingon space. He kind of looks at each of you. The Articles of Interstellar Law are some of the oldest works of treaty that we have with the Klingons, and they have largely remained unbroken since they were ratified. Now, the Articles clearly spell out the role of a hospital ship and the leeway allowed. Now, the Hope will utilize her status as a vessel on a mission of mercy, which will allow her to avoid any harassment from Klingon vessels. And he continues to look at you. On your journey, you'll avoid confrontation with Klingons, making your way at a speed not to exceed warp 6. Now, I know this will mean the journey is going to take about 43 days, but a Federation ship crossing the border at high warp would surely trigger a response. Now, if you encounter a vessel, while in their territory, you are to broadcast the predefined hospital ship recognition codes. And once you've assisted the colonists, you're returned back to Federation space immediately. Are there any questions?
I have one out of character.
Sure.
So you said it would take 43 days to get there at warp 6, but did a certain person from the future not say 4 weeks is when the distress signal got sent out?
Yes, they did.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I wasn't going crazy there. All right. Isha doesn't have any questions at this time.
And before you ask again, Commander Lovely, your request for photon torpedoes has been denied. If the Hope were to arm herself in that fashion, she would lose any credibility as a non-military vessel. And he kind of looks around. Lovely, she's kind of thinking what to say, and she says, Admiral, this really seems like a very risky mission for a hospital ship with minimal weaponry. And the Admiral says, Perhaps, Commander, and this might be very risky indeed, but I'd like to remind you that the longest peace we ever enjoyed with the Klingons came about when one lone Federation vessel came to the aid of a Klingon colony. It's my belief, if we remind them that the value of our friendship, that it'll break the stalemate that we're in. And another thing, Hope will be the first Federation vessel ever in this part of space. That sphere ship you encountered crossed the border on the Klingon side. Maybe you can solve the mystery of where it came from and explore a few others along the way.
It's definitely quite the adventure, Admiral. Do we need to know? Do you have any idea of what my team should be get there?
Well, we've heard, and by the way, Mr. Capel will be accompanying you on your journey as a guide to help you along the way and also to provide firsthand knowledge of the colony. He's told us of dire conditions, starvation, malnutrition, etc., and then also multiple injuries from life on this world, which apparently is not very hospitable.
And most likely also in toxicity due to the dilithium. I will make sure to get an adequate inventory record of all medical supplies, and if we need any more, I'll make sure I send it over to the Imperial.
And with that, I'm going to show you guys your 3 new directives. Your directives are to provide aid to the camp on Algorab 2, avoid conflict with the Klingons, and learn what you can. Those are pretty straightforward.
Yes, they are.
And the Admiral looks around. Okay, well, if there aren't any questions, you guys have a lot of work to do. I'm going to get out of your way. You are to proceed immediately across the border. And the captain looks around. Well, if there are no questions from anyone on the crew, you are dismissed. You can take your stations.
Montgomery will get up and go back to the station.
Yep, Isha will do the same.
I'll pull up our medical inventory and give it to the Admiral. This is what we currently have for inventory. It looks like we could use extra supplies in this, and this.
Well, Commander, feel free to take whatever you need from the Imperial. Unfortunately, there's not too much time for a full stocking. You'd have to go all the way back to Starbase 34 for that. I think you're going to have to make do with what you have. I think, at least I've been told by the Chief Medical Officer on the Imperial, that should be enough to at least help the colony for now. If this mission is a success, maybe it's something we can do regularly, make regular trips to help more colonies inside of Klingon territory.
Aye, sir. And I'll go ahead and head towards my office to prepare a report to disseminate to all of the medical teams.
Okay. And we will transition to the Bridge of the Hope. As the Hope is getting ready to go underway, Brecken turns to Isha and he says, okay, now we're crossing into Klingon territory.
That is the plan, yes.
I guess I should fill out my will. I've got kids at home. At least I think I do.
I feel like if you didn't sign your will and update it before coming here, then you made a grave error.
It seems like the longer I spend sitting next to you, Lieutenant, the more danger I get into. Why is that?
Well, there's something called the lensing effect, where proximity to danger amplifies your perception of such.
Well, okay. I've also heard about that human effect where if you spend time with someone long enough, you start to fall for them. So don't you start falling for me, Lieutenant.
Mr. Grecken, if this is your way of telling me you're interested, I'm not.
No. After those cruel things you said before about my taste in music, I don't think, I don't think I feel that way. Besides, yeah. Your teeth aren't sharp enough for me.
Mr. Grecken, you are aware you are a Tellarite and that such things are considered flirtation, right?
No, it's not. Didn't mean that at all. I mean, sure. I guess
just fly
in
the
right
ship,
circumstances.
Grecken. Just fly the damn ship.
In a mud pit, things will happen, but on my own, probably no.
Montgomery is going to go and approach Commander Lovely.
Lovely turns to you. Yes, Ensign. What's wrong? Why aren't you at your station?
I have a pad here for a requisition request from the Imperial. Since we're going to be going into Klingon space, we might come across difficulty of getting resupplied and coming across material for the ship if we need to do any repairs due to any phenomena we come across. This pad here lists a bunch of difficult and hard to replicate materials that the Imperial does currently have within her stores.
And she looks down the pad. This item here, these probes, could they be misconceived or misconstrued as a weapon?
No, they do not have the housing large enough to hold anything of explosive design. If we were to gut them, they would have no way to guide themselves then. They would be a random ballistic. But even our probes we have aboard the vessel could be modified in such a way. But again, it is not a weapon.
Very good, very good. Well, send this over to the Imperial, and perhaps they can get those materials if they have them available to us. I know the captain wants to go immediately to start on our mission.
He'll go back to the station and send off the request.
and some time passes. And I'd say you would have gotten your most of the materials that you need. Actually, the Imperial has a lot of stuff on hand. And it gets time to pretty much take the ship underway. The captain gives the order, and Grekin lays in a course. Isha, you notice the course you're going is, just like the Admiral said, pretty much straight across the border, deep into Klingon territory.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Of course. And Lovely says, Captain, should we run yellow alert when we cross the border? And Williamson says, no, Commander. Let's stay at normal operation levels. We don't want to provoke anyone. We're not here to start a fight. There's no reason to expect one. And he gives the order, and the ship goes to warp. And the last scene that we will do today, we cut to the bridge of a Klingon vessel. And on the screen of the Klingon vessel is the Hope. And one of the crewmen looks up. He says, Captain, Federation ship has crossed the border. Shall we attack? And one of the Klingons, the helmsman, says, I prepared to intercept. Photon torpedoes ready on your order. The captain says, not yet. Let us see what these Federation types are made of. Set course and arm weapons.